whole societies can learn a lot from each other. Nowadays, we in NATO, let's say countries, we are talking more and more about new disruptive emerging technologies and how NATO countries must counter, let's say, threats that come from technological means.
Do we focus upon rethinking how we think about openness, or should we basically stick to the current definition, how we think about openness or AI, or how technological competition is reshaping the world today?
I think these three factors, namely again, strategic trust, complementarity, the essential regulatory frameworks, can act as accelerators of innovation rather than slowing down and blocking collaboration between international partners.
We have emerging alliances like as well BRICS, where India is an important actor in it.
So basically, we'll try to understand on how the future of openness is something that you would like to dictate in your own words. Hello and welcome to another podcast series under the NATO-India Youth Conference 2nd edition. Today, we are delighted to have with us Ms. Juxhina, former President and Policy Analyst, Youth Atlantic Treaty Association, and Ms. Athina, Research Assistant to the Director General, LEMP. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Perfect. So our conversation today will be focusing upon the innovation paradox, which has been an evolving discussion that has global importance. We will be talking about how, in today's world, openness can be of strategic advantage looking forward in global democracies all around the world. With that, I bring to my first question to Ms. Juxhina Yu, but I equally will like you, Ms. Athina, to bring your perspective to the table that we are delightful to hear. So, Ms. Juxhina, we have seen how in democratic societies there are breakthrough innovations that are happening around due to open research ecosystems. But at the same time, the flip side of it is it creates vulnerabilities in terms of competition that are there. So do we, new democracies that are emerging, be it NATO partners or emerging partners like India, do we focus upon rethinking how we think about openness? Or should we basically stick to the current definition, how we think about openness or AI, or how technological competition is reshaping the world today?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say my words about the Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day to all you ladies. And I will start with openness as a concept, which dates like since the history. And what you are saying also in your question is more or less how can we, let's say, make it more secure and make it more profitable to all societies and countries. And as a policy analyst and someone who takes into heart international theories, I will start that in this international system of countries and non-state actors, what we are seeing nowadays is new emerging alliances and organization of different actors in order to boost the economies and also the wealth of their societies. But the question that rises in democratic societies, but not only, I would say, in all societies, is the question of trust. And I would like to, let's say, to build my argument from here. All actors in this international system, first of all, they need to trust each other in order to build a relation. And by trust, I mean that first of all, we must acknowledge the diversity of all societies, and this is the beauty of. And at the same time, the challenge of our societies, because we in the Western countries and cultures, we took for granted Western values, Western principles, the international rule base, which was based upon Western, let's say, rules and playbooks. So the first thing that we should keep always in mind is that the world is diverse and new alliances are showing it. We have, for example, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Association organization, But at the same time, we have emerging alliances like as well BRICS, where India is an important actor in it. And with that say diversity that we then build trust, we can as a third stage accommodate all these players and actors in the international system. This is because as I said, we don't have one playbook. We have democratic societies, and we have our other societies that have other values and our other principles. And we have to accommodate all these actors in order to, let's say, to counter our own threats and our own security challenges. And one thing that we have learned all now is that security is indivisible and is inseparable from countries, because one security threat that threatens or challenge Europe can be also reflected in Indonesia, for example, or in the Indo-Pacific region. So, with all these different perceptions and perspectives of security, we have to accommodate our diversity and trust ourselves in order to build resilient societies. And the point is not only democratic societies, but societies that function very well within their framework of their culture and population. I wanted more or less to give this all background and then to start our conversation. And one thing that I've learned coming from my second time here in India is that trust is a fundamental ingredient, not only for all, foreign policy, but at the same time for domestic politics. If you don't trust your political leadership, then you cannot have a sustainable government within your country. And we have seen and we are learning from the role that Prime Minister Modi, for example, is also building his strategy and the foreign policy exactly built on trust and acknowledging diversities and then accommodating it. And now we have, for the first time, the trade agreement with Europe as the mothers of deal. So
Yeah.
I will stop here.
No, you indeed uh, highlighted some of the great value system that enables the kind of cooperation that we look forward to, be it like a cooperation at the national level or be it for organizing such an event like here today we are. So those trust, diversity, inclusion, of course, is needed for any cooperation to function and for us to be in a secure world overly, because as you mentioned, and I quote, security is indivisible in nature. With that, we have come to Miss Athena Yu. I think this question will particularly be very interesting given your research background, and I hope it finds you and make you take us through your research journey as well. Because when we focus about research and when we talk about research, the first thing that comes into our head is universities. These research institutions, which basically operate under the principle of academic freedom and open publication. So, how AI breakthroughs are more accessible than globally. The moment AI model comes, it becomes like globally known. It becomes the discovery is reaching the remotest part of the world then. So, how exactly? Otherwise, in a flip side of it, also looks like in authoritarian rules, not in democratic setup. These uh, AI developments are then adopted for closed door developments. So, does the openness, which we basically are talking about the paradox through this conversation, does the openness of AI represent basic disadvantage for democracy? Should be more closed door so that we get ahead in the race, or should we keep it open so that every other democracies is also interacting with us, developing the model with us? How exactly do you think youth and like our approach basically looks like towards the openness of AI models?
Thank you for this question. Being Greek, from a Greek perspective, this question is particularly interesting. The idea of that openness drives progress goes back to ancient Athens. where democratic debates and exchange of ideas created a space for intellectual innovation. But I think that openness still applies today. It still has a similar role. It allows knowledge to circulate through collaboration and peer review. We just have to manage it strategically. By that, I mean that not all knowledge should be treated the same way. We have, for example, sensitive technologies that should be treated in another way. That's common and open knowledge. And I think that this requires some safeguards. So democratic partners should focus on a selective openness. I would say, and that's also what Eugenia mentioned, that there should be some trust between the partners so as to build these standards and have some strategic collaborators in this sense, like we're here in the India NATO Youth Conference. So NATO members, member countries, and India can constitute such partnerships. Now going to the universities that you mentioned and research, at the first glance, this may look like a disadvantage, meaning that open publication allows others to access research quickly and all the work that other people have already done and had taken time for them. But openness at the same time creates something that authoritarian regimes struggle to replicate, that is dynamic innovation ecosystems. So in democratic societies, we have universities, we have startups, we have business people, we have the private sector, and at the same time international partners that work on this and interact constantly. These produce diverse ideas that centralized systems may adopt and may have discoveries quickly, but they do not have this creative environment that there is in open research. And that also produces all this innovation and breakthroughs at the first place. So, if I have to conclude on this, I would say that openness carries risks. There are some dangers in that environment, but it also creates the conditions where innovation actually emerges. So, in other centralized systems, we might have more quick procedures, but we do not have the environment to establish something that will have a future and we can build on it.
That sounds great because you literally carried us from the historical perspective to the modern to the contemporary nuance of how openness is to be perceived. That narrative particularly shows how knowledge is still circulating around and talking about how it needs to be more managed strategically in order to be given to the coming generation and how the coming generation can use that knowledge further. Miss, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, in fact, I would also like to add something to the research. Being part of YADA as well, which is a platform of young students coming together, and the focus is forever communication and how we communicate. So, one of the challenges that we face as well in this realm is how can we distinguish and how can we separate misinformation and disinformation. So we always, as young people and students as well, they have always a task to do a fact check. So you always have to go deeper, not only on open sources data, but you have to always fact check what is happening. I remember, for example, during the Operation Sindoor last year, there were a lot of videos and a lot of news spreading all over the world that weren't true, basically. And knowing you guys, I had always, in the middle of that conflict, I was always in contact with fellows from GEOSTRATA asking what is happening. Is this video true? Or I saw this in all social media platforms. So in this area of disinformation or malign influences, for example, not only we in NATO societies, but you as well, and all over the world, we faces this kind of challenges. And it's always good to do a good research, not only in open sources, but always to fact to check very well our sources and the news that we are constantly being bombed all over our day.
That's certainly true. I think Operation Sindhu particularly also highlighted for us how exactly narrative warfare plays a greater role whenever two countries are interacting with each other. It doesn't really matter which countries are like at conflict at that particular point of time or right now, which is going on with US, Israel, Iran. We see how narrative is something that is very nuanced built, and a lot of countries are putting more efforts into building that narrative out. You see more leaders coming in and talking about it. But that also has the flip side, as you quoted, that we need to be very sure about the misinformation and disinformation that comes with it, and talk about how technology then changes the whole game and the whole setup. With that, I come to my third question about how technological partnerships that we have are often to accelerate our growth when it comes to like signing up more paths with each other, signing up more treaties. But these negotiations are very complex in nature and are guided by a lot many more factors. So technological partnership on face value that is seen as like a wow deal for any country, it's also very complex. So how exactly do both of you guys picture what factors should determine and should be given more weightage in when two countries are negotiating, let's say NATO partners and India is negotiating about technology partnerships as an area to collaborate upon? What factors should we say are more important that needs to be kept in mind while negotiating these treaties out? Or and what are the factors that you see right now are guiding maybe bureaucracy delays that should not be there? Or what are the challenges in the implementation of these technological partnerships that we have built upon so far, which are not basically letting the advantages of it being given to the youth or to younger people or to the grassroots levels?
Yeah. Okay, I will start. You put a lot of things in this question, and it is crucial now to understand that all of the treaties and all of the basic documents that alliances are built upon and are created dates so many decades ago. So everything did is after World War II, and nowadays the world has changed a lot. What I see as potential in this dynamic is the fact that also whole societies can learn a lot from each other. Nowadays, we in NATO, let's say countries, we are talking more and more about new disruptive emerging technologies and how NATO countries must counter, let's say, threats that come from technological means, for example, and cybersecurity is as well a realm that is having a lot of importance nowadays. And we also heard before at the NATO-India Youth Conference about the diversity and the changing environment, not only physical environment, but also maritime, let's say, environment is not anymore the same. And in NATO, for example, we have a lot of crucial and important maritime hubs and routes that serve as our technological storage, for example. And I mean here, I have in mind the data cables in the Baltic Sea, for example. But at the same time, Greenland is becoming more of an issue due to the, let's say, to the importance of this route where the NATO cables of data networking and communication are as well allocated, let's say. And with all the documents and the treaties that we have already, which dates are old, let's say, we have to adapt more in this field. But at the same time, where we have threats and challenges and risks, there are also opportunities. And if we keep in mind that India is, for example, the largest democracy in the world and have this kind of technological development, there is a lot where we can start off, and a lot of to learn and to adapt in our societies. I've seen here the level of technology in every level of the society, starting from the individual to the governmental level, and we have opportunities to learn how to build our platforms and our defense strategies in order to have a more robust cyber defense, because we have a lot of threats and cognitive warfare, but also cyber and space are the new domains of warfare. So I think that in countries also facing malign influences and cyber threats, we can take some points where we can know how to adapt and to counter them. For example, a few years ago in Albania, we also had a very huge and critical cyber attack in our country, where we had to, let's say, seek help from our allies in order to know how to adapt and to counter those threats. So I think that building alliances can also help in order to share practices and procedures. And I will stay here.
That's certainly true, because you rightly quoted how adapting, not just from your past experiences, but also from each other, is something that we also see today happening a lot in global world. Because and probably can be one of the area where we and India, being an emerging partner, and NATO countries can collaborate upon not just adapting from each other, but also giving back to each other and talking about how exactly we can strategically move towards a path where we are collaborating more and benefiting mutually throughout. So I will move on to Miss Athena. Do you have any perspective to share over the same question first?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Eugene. I would say that in order for cooperation to work best, we need to have some elements coexisting, to have some specific conditions to at the same time. So have already discussed about strategic trust. That will be the first element for me. So the partners should be confident that all technologies will be used responsibly. Then we need as a second element complementarity. So each partner can bring different strengths that can go from research capacity that we also discussed before to industrial production and to technological expertise. So each one bring a different aspect in the collaboration that they have. And of course, you also mentioned bureaucracy. That's a major problem. So the regulatory frameworks shall not block collaborations. I mean, they're necessary, they shall exist, but they should facilitate the collaborations between countries. So I think these three factors, namely again, strategic trust, complementarity, and the essential regulatory frameworks, can act as accelerators of innovation rather than slowing down and blocking collaborations between international partners.
That's totally right. As Eugenia, you summed up in terms of like where there is risk, there is opportunity, that was again highlighted by Miss Athena into the question and into the conversation. So one of the last question that I have for both of you is about the presumption that we have that mostly democratic innovation systems are advantageous in nature, but also faced with competition and bottom down discovery, which outperform the top down direction. So, looking ahead, what do you think and how you would like to picture certain indicators or development that we should watch for that might demonstrate where democratic innovation model can sustain for long term strategic advantage and evolve into a technological landscape which mutually benefits different partners out? So basically, we'll try to understand on how the future of openness is something that you would like to dictate in your own words.
Yeah. Okay, you
Starting
can
good?
start.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, as for the future of research and in which regimes they shall advance and flourish, let's say. The question, I think, is the debate is between democracies or authoritarian regimes. I think that we should look for some indicators of where things are going. So one indicator could be that the location where, in which systems breakthrough technologies emerge. If major advances continue to come from open research systems, that might tell something important that work being done there is doing as it shall be. So a second indicator is the strength of international innovation networks. We see that in democratic regimes, in democracies, research comes also as a result of international programs, not only national research programs. In Europe, we have many such programs. I can name Horizon Europe program and other such collaborative networks. So we see that in democratic regimes, we look at the collective power and strength and not only on the separative and individual contribution. And another third factor, it could be the talent attraction. So open societies attract people from different backgrounds. We have researchers, we have business people, we have private sector, we have universities. So we also see that here we have a polyphony, let's say, different actors contributing to the same target and the same output. And we might at the same time look at trust in technology. We have discussed, I think, a lot strategic trust, but this is the main component of a collaboration. So technologies that societies trust are easier to adopt and then scale. So if democratic systems continue to combine openness within the right regulatory frameworks as we discussed and having the level of collaboration needed with their international partners and the trusted governance, they will likely sustain their innovative strategy and thrive in it rather than have a lower level of independence in authoritarianism.
That's certainly true because collective power and strength is certainly needed for a long-term approach to have. Any closing remarks, Eugenia?
Yes, I will close with what is the main, let's say, discussion now in our NATO countries, and I would like to give this perspective beyond openness or besides openness. What is important nowadays as a public discussion more and more is standardization and interoperability, and we are not talking anymore of about innovation or modernization, but how to make it more standard in all of our society in order for us to have, let's say, mutual and common frameworks in order to better counter or absorb different shocks that our societies can face. And it also strengthen the capability and capacity to also respond better to these threats and to be resilient in our societies, which is also important.
Again, you highlighted one of the other values. We started this podcast from value system and how diversity inclusion being one of the important values. We went through history. We now ending it over the note of another value system of inclusion and how the diversity again becomes like one of the important goal for anything to sustain at a longer pace and for decisions to stand at the right places. With that, we come to an end to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time and being
Thank you.
here at the second edition of NATO-India Youth Conference. I will also like to thank all our partner members, NATO, CAS, for organizing this podcast with us. And once again, to our guests, Juxhina and Athina, thank you once again.
Thank you.
It was great.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.